Hi everyone. Thank you for coming to Art Atrium. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Pichigo and Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. So today is the first solo exhibition by Peter Poulet in our gallery, and so it's a great honor for us because Peter is such a fantastic artist, but prior to that, he's also a very prominent architect. I first knew of Peter when he was the New South Wales government architect. A friend of mine was working under him at the New South Wales government architect office, and then afterwards, I think it was Paul Connor, one of our artists, who introduced us quite a number of years ago, and so yeah, here we are. I mean, Peter used to exhibit with Waters Gallery until they decided to retire, and now Peter is with us. So, currently Peter still wears quite a lot of hats. So I'm amazed that he actually managed to do this new body of work, which he assured me was only just done yesterday, or at least this year. Yeah, he's currently got a role as professor at UNSW, as a director in the City Institute. But he really loves to be a full-time artist, so he's working towards that. And to open the exhibition, we have Dr Izabela Pluta, who is actually a fantastic artist herself. And on top of that, she's also an academic. She's a senior lecturer at UNSW in arts, design, and architecture, and her specialty is photography. And she's exhibited quite widely, including she got a commission work in the National in 2019 at Art Atrium, New South Wales. So, and obviously she knows Peter's work quite well. So I want you to put your hand together to welcome Izabela Pluta to speak about her work.
Thank you, Simon. Careful? Oh, careful about what? It's an honour to be here and to introduce you to this beautiful exhibition by Peter Poulet, an artist who I have learned, and I've known Peter for about 18 years or so, we've worked out on the drive here. But Peter's practice spans around 50 years, which is pretty incredible. Thinking about that. No, not talking about age, thinking about the practice, Peter. Yeah. And I guess Simon's already mentioned this kind of this other practice that Peter has, where he's incredibly involved and continues to influence urban development through his role at UNSW. And I think that's quite a marvellous and a kind of incredible juggle to have, knowing a lot of us here are probably artists as well, and have that practice alongside another kind of practice, which is also creating in different ways. But I guess over this time that I've known Peter, it's kind of, it's been really interesting to watch him, and I've been to his studio a couple of years ago when we were in Bundina, this really beautiful shed, I guess, really fancy shed, which has sort of really let him, I guess, explode into paintings that are obviously much more significant in size, and you can see many of those here. But I think this work that he makes in concert with his career in sort of civic leadership, he sort of developed a really beautiful relationship with his medium where you can see this sort of intimate and tireless engagement that speaks to his commitment not only with his craft but also to this real exploration of space and form within painting and this interplay of ideas across time. And time is a really elastic thing, and a time is a kind of wonderful concept when thinking through practice, because we were talking on the phone last weekend and Peter sort of described the way that some works, not all, are sort of worked over and returned to across time. So I guess as an artist I kind of really have an affinity with that kind of generative approach to making. They're also, really interesting because they're very loose and kind of formed over this time, but they're also meticulously sort of full of labour, right? Many hours of labour, and often worked and sort of reworked over tirelessly until the canvas kind of becomes a very nuanced kind of journey of his artistic kind of, an artistic kind of journey. And this sort of sporadic approach as well, I think, is really interesting, where, you know, it's how time and all these ideas and everything that's around him in terms of elements and motifs that occur kind of constantly in this sort of cycle over the years and kind of accumulate, and you return to, I think, a really fascinating, and it's really, I mean, when I was looking through your website, I guess, knowing your practice, but also website is that fantastic thing where you can see something in the present and refer to things in, you know, paintings that you were making 20 or 30 years ago. And there's certainly these motifs that you keep coming back to, which would be lovely to have a conversation about at some point. But this visual language, I guess, that resurfaces over the years, ties these themes and sort of elements together without ever being overly determined. And it also allows work to sort of stand alone while simultaneously echoing these sort of thoughts and processes of your past explorations. I guess my language is photography, so I can't not bring that up. But I was thinking about Peter's work, and I was kind of reminded me about the different ways that in our respective mediums, Peter, genres like portraiture and landscape kind of give way to abstraction. And in a photographic practice that is created either by a manipulation of light or by chemicals. But like here in Peter's work, that I resonate with, I guess, is by distorting or kind of fragmenting that actual world. So there's, I guess, so many ways to kind of practice that abstraction for so many different reasons. I was also thinking about the emergence of photography and abstraction, but I probably won't go into that at all. I guess I like to apply that kind of photographic thinking to a lot of different things. I guess, you know, probably to wrap up, I sort of thought about Peter's work as being really responsive, and we talked about how he approaches work without sometimes a predetermined kind of grid or an idea, and it kind of happens as it does to unfold in the studio really organically. And as he kind of applies the paint, he responds to this sort of kind of risk-taking and a real sort of spontaneity. And this brush stroke or washes of colours. I mean, I was sort of quite in love with these deep washes that kind of spill in one direction, and kind of wondering how he did that, you know, in turning the canvas. And I can't talk about that, but it was really wonderful to learn of that, Peter. And also about these earlier decisions, about this layering that occurs, and you called it, I think, moves, but about how, you know, earlier decisions that you make in perhaps, you know, a few months ago or a year ago, or whatever that temporal divide is, that kind of you return to again, and something else kind of happens in that moment. So this kind of accumulation or generative practice sort of leading to very sometimes unanticipated results, right? Yeah, so these moves, setting up the next move and wondering where it's going to take you. And I think lastly, there's something really interesting, knowing you, I guess, as an architect and a thinker, and having this sort of relationship with space. I think you can't deny that there's sort of, you know, always this play of spatial dynamics, which allude to something else beyond the canvas itself. They're obviously very immersive in scale, and provide this kind of meditative space for us to enter into, and I think that scale is something really a kind of physicality that lets you evoke something else. I might leave you with that. I think it's really important to be with the work. I think be is probably the key word, that this immersive way that you, or an artist kind of works or paints in this kind of immersion in a studio, I think is really echoed in this work. And it's really beautiful to kind of think through them, to have the opportunity to kind of spend the last week or two sort of thinking through Peter's work more deeply than I probably ever have. So thank you for that opportunity. And thank you to all for joining us, and welcome to the gallery. It's a really beautiful space. Thank you, Simon, for the invitation. And enjoy the work.
Thank you, Isabella. I guess we need to get the artist to say a few words.
I think it's called the right of reply. Simon, Isabella, thank you. Yes, it is a wonderful space. Thank you for taking the time to interrogate the work and me. It's still a mess. My brain doesn't work in a linear or logical fashion, and that's exemplified by what you see on the walls. Each painting is a wrestling match. Some are more entertaining and satisfying than others. Some are more difficult than others, but they all come to a conclusion somehow. When is the question? I'll leave that to you to ponder. And I think you need to spend time with the works. They do have a depth and a complexity that I think lets you live with them, and that's important too. They're not a one-hit wonder, as the saying goes, which I enjoy. The quirky jokes and the little asides that are in them are there to be discovered. Again, thank you, Simon. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you for coming all the way from Newcastle, kids. And enjoy the show, and thanks for coming on a hot, I guess, long weekend. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. And continue to enjoy the exhibition and have a few drinks. And if you decide that you want to get involved in Peter's journey in this art, you should come and see me. Thank you.